Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the show. Welcome, journalists and program directors. These posts are being made with you in mind. What that means is I'm not going overboard with certain types of theories. This is more of a blog to focus on my personal life experiences because I am a vulnerable person who is experiencing a lot of microaggressions. Okay. And it has to do with things that are beyond my level of control. Okay, so the vocabulary that I'm going to be using is very deliberate. Okay, so we unfortunately live in a world of deception where you are not told the truth. Okay, and through my life experience, which will be told and it will be read and well received, unfortunately, in greater numbers with greater people when I'm gone. That's typically how things work here on the earth. I'm not attempting, to leave prematurely, but I'm also very concerned, which is why I need your help. So you need to understand that somebody like me, and you should pick up on it by now, who's from Portland, Oregon, with my background, isn't going to do well with the Dallas, Texas population. We're talking about all the races, including the Muslims. Okay, so this unorthodox nature to the speech, to the information, is not popular with these folks. And what I'm going through, unfortunately, from this environment, which, I'm a natural Neptunian Pisces fish, if you will, from the Pacific Northwest. And not even specifically just Portland, but like rural Oregon, where there's trees and beauty and ponds. Okay, those are my origins. This place, it's landlocked. Okay, it's the Bible Belt. And even though there's scripture in certain restaurants and places, the reality is, I understand there's some secular people that are watching, but as far as real Christian values go, this isn't represented here. And they do discriminate based on race at the corporate level, even corporations that are believed to be left-wing. And that's why I'm reaching out to left-wing people. There is some pain between myself and the show called Democracy Now!, and I'll be brief on that. And I'm going to be very clear in what I'm hoping for. I think that it would be worth my while, possibly, as long as it doesn't jeopardize my safety, to go on the Amy Goodman Show to express my perspective on various topics. Okay, it could be a one-time thing to talk about my book, but if I produce a book that reveals the fact that a person like me can be different and can have a skill set, then we can counter the white supremacy, white nationalist talking points that these Afghans are a virus. The pain that I have is that they platformed Jason Burmis, who was a white nationalist, who was a Trump-tard, to give their version of 9/11. I think that we need to talk about 9/11 from the context of Afghan history and war crimes. The conspiracy theory movement doesn't care about Afghan history. It is in my blood, and it is in my ancestry to be a historian. You need to look closer at who Tamim Mansouri is and his intellect and understand that I'm a variant of that. So I can help you understand certain things as what you might call an embedded reporter within conspiracy theory, who's not racist, who was only into, quote unquote, the good stuff. What do you mean the good stuff? Warning about the type of stuff that Donald Trump is doing now, back then, just to start you off. Let me know if you'd like to talk some more. Because when we get down to it, I believe that women need more rights, not less. And you should expose the world to a Middle Eastern man who is promoting the idea of women fighting corruption without being necessarily part of a religion. You understand that I'm not Muslim? There's no beard here. Do you understand that I eat pork once in a while? Do you understand that I sin in the world of Islam and I drink alcohol? So I don't pass for a Muslim. I also believe in divination. So the amount of things that I do that are considered wrong, I'm not doing this to attack them. I'm doing this to defend myself. Because you do live now in a barbaric world that will make assumptions, and this is what this comes down to anyone listening. This comes down to what may be happening with Arabs in the future parallels the movie Schindler's List, or that type of scenario. And I do think that people could be harmed based on name. And then when you involve robotics into this, artificial intelligence, and you have a younger generation that is taught to be immoral. Young kids that were raised on video games, rape porn, and fake news. Some of you have been warning about that since the beginning. Okay, Chris Hedges has been warning about the nightmarish content, for example, on certain websites, and he called it the depiction of the end of the world. Okay, we had to pause the video there, so I'm not sure exactly where I left off, but I will attempt to get back to where I'm needing to be. And so because of the situation that I'm dealing with and all the compounded stress and the living arrangement and the lack of medical marijuana and the abundance of alcohol, although I don't drink that much, but I feel like as a sensitive that I'm affected by the illness of other people, the hatred and the racism. And by no means am I just talking about, one demographic. We're talking about a lot of people that are here in this DFW region that are very absorbed with materialism, or for those of you on the left, corporate capitalism, that sort of thing, making money, putting money over humanity, or some could say putting money over God, depending on your perspective. And so in that type of environment, it doesn't matter if I go to a mosque, which I don't. It doesn't matter if I talk to Muslims. Like I said, they're always rejecting what I have to say because they believe that what I stand for is haram, whether it be my history of maybe going to strip clubs back in Portland 15 years ago and then talking about that evil, what I learned from it, why it's not healthy for me and a lot of women, the occasional drinking, the divination, the unorthodox views on God, the belief in reincarnation. We can just go down the line. With mainstream Christians, with mainstream Muslims, and even New Agers, what I talk about and what I get into is outside their box, okay? So what I'm dealing with right now is a reality in which you might think that there's help if I call 988, okay, to talk about these things. And the truth is, I actually think that journalists with an interest in certain things that may be growing at this time, okay, because there are times in U.S. history where there are renaissances, where there are growth spurts, where people become spiritual, where people come together where normally they do not. I'll leave out my spiritual speculations so I don't alienate you as to why that is. But the energy is in the air. Okay, solar flares. The energy is in the air that while they're making war, how can we make love? Intellectually through the sharing of information, okay? That's why I'm going to be on a mission to show the world that a person like me can exist, that is different, that can contribute to society. You need to recognize and own it, that your society seems to have an unconscious, subconscious agenda to act like people like me are a virus. And if we look at my life story from the beginning, there has always been these attempts, whether we're looking at Gunner, whether we're looking at Phil, where we're looking at my parents abusing me individually and not telling my full ancestry, there has always been that history of trying to create deliberate trauma, okay? And to get me in trouble early on before I would have an opportunity to reach the world, before I would go off grid and need the Second Amendment, before those things happened, people like Gunner came into my life to derail me, okay? When I call 988, they hang up the phone. They think that there's help available, and there is no, right, other than I think telling my autobiography story, going on shows, moving out of here, because I have 12 months to get out of here. She's had enough of me. Go on shows, build bridges after I've burned old ones, and move on to a new world in which I'm helping people, in which I'm not talking to conspiracy theorists. I'm being a counselor. I'm deprogramming people from conspiracy theory. Sure, I have my own belief systems, but I can shelve that to a certain level and focus on the person who has been screwed up, who's looking for help. You see, there are people out there in this world that when they realize that I'm that type of a healer, that I can help them deprogram from years of white nationalist talking points, from just getting to know me, they will get away from me. And I'll save you the spiritual speculation on that, but from a secular perspective, we're dealing with schizophrenics. We're dealing with people that have unresolved trauma from their mom and their dad and their exes in the court system. Not to go down a manosphere direction, but you can't deny the reality that there has been an imbalance in the force, if you will, Luke, and that family is gold. And that was the departing message from Jeff Gianola, the journalist. The most respected journalist in the history of Portland, Oregon is Jeff Gianola. And his departing message was the power of family, with tears in his eyes. He was saying more than what he was saying with his eyes and his voice. He was saying much more. So what I'm going to do in about 20 minutes after uploading this, and we're going to keep this down to 15 minutes, and you may get more than one post a day. Okay? They won't all be hours and hours of content. Some of them will be 15 minutes for the producer to be able to watch it from the comfort of their reality. And you need to know that I'm also putting this on YouTube, and I have 0 views on YouTube. Okay? They have somewhat shadow banned the face. And you need to know that they can do this now that Trump is running all these social media websites. They can do this. And if they can disappear somebody on social media and take away their ability to make an income, you know, it really, again, sounds like old theories from the past about them doing something with technology to make somebody invisible. And it also parallels 1984, the book. In 1984, you have the party members, right? And then in 1984, you have the non-party members that are what? Living off grid. 1984 is prophetic, okay, and isn't considered conspiracy theory. For years, it was considered required reading. Then there's an author by the name of Philip K. Dick, who I also liken to be a seer, who had the same philosophies that I did, that we are in some sort of reincarnated Rome with the persecution of the Jesus Christ folks. Okay, now that might be a bit much for you, but these are things that people that came before us would talk about back in the hippie dippy days. And I'm the closest thing that you will ever meet to a real hippie right now that hasn't allowed himself or herself to be corrupted by Western money, to be corrupted by the 80s, to be corrupted by the 90s. Okay, I'm not completely free of corruption, but I'm free of selling out. You need people like me to bounce ideas off of and understand what is real versus what is not real. So I would like to heal the invisible wound with Democracy Now! They have platformed Jason Burmis. They have platformed other people that have involved themselves in the Trump administration or the Alex Jones world. And it would be nice if I was to publish a book, okay, if they were to do a personal life story on me and another perspective on 9/11 that focuses on Afghan history, when they weren't radicalized, when the women were free, to talk about the 1950s era that my dad lived in but left as things started to go south, and then maybe asking some unanswered questions about both the United States and Russia, both contributing to the downfall of the same country. And now years later, we see the obvious links between those two nations. Let me know if you're watching, if you would like to talk. Otherwise, I will be back with more. We'll see you again soon.